Hello and welcome to News Laundry Interviews. Today we are with Rajeev Chandrasekhar, the second term Rajya Sabha MP from Karnataka,
Right.
Who incidentally is also one of the heroes of 66A on News Laundry, if you read our article, who was one of the prominent faces who initiated the battle against 66A. We'll move on to this discussion on net neutrality, which is what I'd like to focus this on. But before we do that, could you just tell us about 66A very briefly?
Right.
The first time when you actually made the submission,
Right.
how did your colleagues react to it, and how difficult was it to push it through? I mean, we followed what happened in the courts, but before that, which wasn't covered so much.
You know, the 66A battle started in 2008, so it's about 6-7 years old, and it started the day the bill was passed in the parliament with no debate. It was passed in the din by the UPA government, and nobody got an opportunity to really speak out on that bill. I actually remember because I stepped out for a glass of water, and by the time I came back, the bill had been introduced and passed.
Wow.
So it is that pretty much decided the fate of the bill, because when a bill is passed without any debate in parliament and therefore no debate in media and in general civil society, you get a bill that is basically flawed. And
Which is what we got.
Which is what we got. And it took all of 8 years to fix that flaw, and it took for the Supreme Court to intervene, and it took the Supreme Court to intervene despite the fact that this issue was raised in Parliament subsequently on more than 4 occasions, including one debate in which the then telecom minister gave an undertaking on the floor of the House that he would review it. So it just shows that in a lot of ways that the much acclaimed parliamentary oversight on legislation can be compromised and be captured, and it requires the Supreme Court to intervene and solve it.
But were you also disappointed with the role of the media, that until those girls were arrested, when you said that the minister said he'd review it, it was never reviewed, there was no outrage about it?
I am no longer disappointed by the role of media in anything, to be honest, because I think there is a tendency now in media within the country that they tend to ride the issue rather than lead the issue. This has been true when I started raising the issue of 2G scam in 2008 and 2009. I got very little traction from conventional media. There was 1 or 2 journalists who bravely stood out there and stuck their neck out. But it is only when it became a full-blown mob frenzy after 2010 with the CAG report that you saw all of the regular media get into this so-called corruption debate.
Does that worry you?
Well, of course it worries me. It should worry you, me and everybody that the media, instead of being the lead on issues of consumer importance and public importance, is increasingly being a participant and a follower, and that is bothering. It is bothering because it then requires people to do all kinds of dramatics to get notice and get the attention to an issue, to get the focus on an issue. The network neutrality issue is a classic example.
Exactly.
Where the media has essentially been the tail to a consumer movement.
Okay. I'll just tell you a full disclosure. News Laundry doesn't take positions on things, but on net neutrality, on 66A, we had a campaign, we took a position.
Right.
So I'll try to play devil's advocate now and then, just to punch a holes, because I'd really like to dissect the entire, not just Try's consultation paper, but also what happened before when you had actually taken up this issue in Parliament. So we'll actually go into that a little.
I'm happy to be dissected.
Yeah. Any disclosures you'd like to make? You are the one who founded BPL. You were the...
I have no commercial interest in the technology space, telecom space. I have no commercial interest of any sort. Okay. I, of course, have interest in the media space. I indirectly have investments in 2 TV channels and a newspaper in the South.
Okay. So, but you are the founder of BPL, the leader in the mobile, when the boom was just happening.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, first of all, I'll keep breaking eye contact. I know it's rude, but I don't know the subject as well as you do, so I want to consult my notes so I know exactly what I'm saying. To begin with, you were one of the first few to take this issue up in Parliament on network neutrality. What kind of reaction did you get back then, and how did it play out? If you could just tell us that.
You see, I think the awareness amongst parliamentarians and policymakers, and I include bureaucracy and into that category, on the power of the internet has been slow in coming. Now, I think up to 2014, everybody dismissed the internet, and it dismissed people on the internet as, and I'm using the word very, very loosely, but in some kind of disconnected loonies. Okay. And people who are really not mainstream, not relevant in the national scheme of things. It is only the 2014 election campaign which really saw a use of social media and the use of the internet in an unprecedented way, and got mobilization of a different demographic of voter in an unprecedented way, that has caught the attention of people. So if you see now, a lot of people who have jumped into the internet debate are recent converts.
And is it because they thought they could influence election? Is that where the political
I think
class?
they have now realized the power of the internet. They have realized the power of the consumer sitting on the internet, which they, like I said, pre-2014 were very dismissive about. There are a lot of things in Delhi that have now, let's say, brand new in the psyche of people. The 2010 to 2014 growth of a political movement like AAP on the back of Lokpal, the 2014 removal of the UPA in a fairly decisive manner. In both these cases, the internet and social media have played a significant role. Now you can argue it's 40%, 80%, 70%, whatever, but they have played a role that is unprecedented. That has got the attention of people who are the players in this game of politics. That has got the attention of people who are players in the media game. And that is why there is now a desire to be on the right side of the argument, as opposed to 2 years ago when people didn't care whether they were in the argument or not.
But are they on the right side? I mean, I know there's a handful. You've raised this issue. Mr. Satpathy's raised this issue. I think Jay Panda today has written a piece in the Times of India, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. I mean, I can count them on the fingertips.
No, but you will see in the parliament session of the 24th, 23rd, there will be a lot of people saying network neutrality, network neutrality, network neutrality.
How did they react when you brought up in parliament for this?
When I brought it up first, people looked at me and said, here's a techie who is talking about stuff that doesn't matter to us. When I brought up Section 66A in 2010 and talked about the intermediary guidelines and it being an absolutely flawed law, people said, this doesn't get any votes.
But the law for the intermediaries still does stand, in the sense 66A is gone, but 79,
69 and the intermediary guidelines remain. So my position on the going back to the IT Act, I believe that the IT Act, as is pretty obvious, is 7 years old. It is dated and needs replacing. I would argue that the government, instead of saying we will just replace Section 66A with a new, less onerous 66A, should relook at the whole framework, because in 7 years, a lot of water has flown under the bridge. A lot of changes have happened in India and in the world, not just technologically, but also from a point of view of consumers and expectations and conduct on the net. So I would believe that the right thing for the government to do is to move to a new legislative framework that captures all of these seemingly contradictory things, which is internet safety, internet freedom of expression, internet neutrality. These three are not contradictions. They can live on the internet together and complement in a very complementary manner.
Okay, I can understand if the your colleagues in Parliament, either the Rajya Sabha or the Lok Sabha, didn't react to your bringing up net neutrality so enthusiastically, because they aren't so in the tech space, and
they don't relate to it.
And it's a different generation. The average age of Parliament isn't exactly young bucks, but TRI is an expert panel, so to speak.
Correct.
Are you disappointed with their consultative paper? How would you?
Deeply disappointed, because I wrote to the regulator in January. And I wrote to him saying that you are being a bystander, a mute spectator to what is happening. It's a distortion of the market that some large companies are undertaking. This is anti-consumer interest, and I believe you should intervene. He actually wrote a nice letter back to me saying that...
Mr. Khullar's letter.
Yes, the chairman of the TRAI, saying that we promised to undertake a consultation. And the material part of that letter was that he said, we will capture both sides of the argument.
And that is the telecom side and the user
consumer
side.
And present that as part of the consultation so that people then can comment. And that is correct. That is the right way to do a public consultation. I have looked through this 118-page document, and I started reading this early April, and I finished this by 6th of April, and I could not find one word in that consultation that had to do with consumers.
Yeah.
It was all about telcos. It was about telcos, their loss of revenues, their future, their investments, their structure, their this and their that. I looked for that promised second side. I did not find it. And that is when I took to Twitter and said, you know, I can write a letter. I can raise this in Parliament, but I know this is going to be again one voice. It is for the consumer, internet consumer of India to now start writing to the regulator directly. And that is when on the 8th of April I tweeted and said, look, I can do so much, but you guys have to come in here and tweet and write an email.
And that has got a lot of traction. You know, I think now it's over 3.5 lakh mails.
It's brilliant.
So online it picked up. Has this picked up? And we're going to come back to the TRI document. I have a few notes here that I would just like to run by you. But before we come to that, has it also picked up in Parliament? I mean, have any of your colleagues in college said, okay, now we know we're talking about...
I think what happens in India today is, and I don't claim to be an expert political player, but I've been in Parliament for 8 years, that when the voice of the consumer or the people starts reaching a crescendo, it tends to travel through all kinds of dark corridors, political offices, and knock on doors and strike down doors. So you can see in the last 48 hours, there are political parties and MPs and people in politics who had not spoken a word about this for the last several months and years, are suddenly taking very, very strident, well-informed positions on net neutrality
which
in
is
favor
great.
of, which is brilliant, which again proves to me that media and politicians follow what the people start shouting about. So that is the point I'm making again and again, that the lead here is always about consumers and the people getting together and saying something, and then automatically you get the traction that you want.
Okay, well, that's a good lesson for all the people watching this online, that you guys can set the agenda and the narrative. Now let's come to the TRI consultation paper. It has used the word stuff like unfairly, like you pointed out. Also, it has gone into areas on the validity of apps that have to do with health that may not be accurate health-wise, or pornography. Now, I just want to understand, since you probably know the subject a lot better than I do, is this the TRI's mandate to look at whether a health app passes the guidelines of whatever the equivalent of
privacy or whatever?
Yeah.
No, here is a game that's played often in Delhi, and I've seen this more than once, so this doesn't surprise me. When you cannot advocate and articulate your position and convince people using just plain facts and figures, you then create conspiracies. So you usually create a conspiracy about security, and on the internet that's the biggest bogey. Oh, you don't know what lurks on the internet, and therefore we must regulate the internet. And who will regulate the internet and keep it safe for all of these people in India who are gullible and naive? Government. And who is the government? It will be a joint secretary sitting in the Department of Telecom, who just recently moved to the Ministry of Agriculture, who will be now keeping the internet safe for you. And you are not smart enough to keep yourself safe, so we will keep it safe for you. So usually the first conspiracy and bogey is security,
which TRI
has played to its cards.
Right.
They have now created a new one, which is to say Indian. So, all of these OTTs and apps are foreign. Why can't we create restrictions on them? Because Indian apps can grow. So there is a patriotism angle. So now if the first one doesn't work, plan B. What's plan B? Indianness. The third one, okay, let's make this really go for broke here. Let's throw in health and privacy as well. So now forget the issue of regulation, forget all of those issues. Let's try and distract people by saying there are all these big lurking threats on the internet relating to security, privacy, health and data information, and whatever else. And of course, Indianness and patriotism and all of that.
But that's not TRI's mandate. That
of course not.
The TRI is supposed
TRI is mandated by the TRA Act to do two things. And it's got powers under the TRA Act to look after public interest and consumer interest.
Exactly. That is the
it is
prime
mandated
mandate.
in the law.
But the paper reads like it's mandated to take care of telco interests.
That is why I said the TRAI has written to me saying we will do an even-handed, two-sided consultation where both the public interest part of it and the investor interest part of it will be presented, and then it is for the people to comment on it. Instead of doing that, they have not only erred, they have shown a blatant bias by only capturing one part of the conversation. And I have no problems with that conversation. Investors and telcos are entitled to scream and worry about their business
and take care of their interests.
Yeah, that's fine. But you can't have that interest running amok without the contra argument and the contrary narrative being placed in front of the people, and then have the consultation process go that way.
Okay, now everyone's seen all those videos of why network neutrality matters. So I'm not going to go there because AIB has done a piece. A lot of people. Rahul Roshan's written a really nice analogy on traffic. How
I see.
I mean, it's
I think people are beginning to get it.
So so that is. So let's put that aside. Let's come to the concern of the corporates or the telecom companies. Again, I repeat, I have a position on network neutrality. However, I think it is fair for me to ask. You have been in the telecom industry. I'm sure it was a huge investment. Would you feel suckered if you were still in the space that, dude, I've laid out these lines, I've done all this, and suddenly a WhatsApp rides on my back and takes my revenue away? Just that limited argument sounds plausible?
No, it will sound plausible to somebody who is not a technology investor, who is not a telecom investor. Now, the minute you are in telecom and technology, you are supposed to understand that space. I'm assuming that is a given. You don't walk in and become a telecom investor without knowing what that business is about, what the ecosystem is and what is happening in that space. This is not 20 years ago when we were just inventing a cellular phone. This is a sector that has evolved, matured, and the technological movements and changes are well known, and in a sense there is a clear understanding in the tech space that disruptive changes are the normal. Nobody invests in Apple or Google or AT&T or Airtel or Vodafone with the assumption that things are going to be the same 10 years on that were in the moment they started the business. This is a space where innovation and creativity are at its peak. The windows and cycles for technologies are smaller and smaller.
What law is that? The processing speed becomes double.
That is I worked at Intel for many years, and that is the main Moore's law. Sorry, not Moore's law. Moore's law. Moore's law is the law that says that silicon and the concentration of transistors per semiconductor will exponentially grow.
Right.
So that is about processing power. But
so everyone in your space, not your space, what used to be your space, should know this.
Yeah, this is like the common sense before you enter the tech space, that you know that this is a highly competitive, highly innovative, highly creative space. This is not like making trucks. This is not, and even there are disruptive changes happening on energy and fuel cells and all that. But to now say that, look, I am in the telecom space and in some sense the Indian consumer should guarantee to me or subsidize to me a business model that I believe I started 2 years ago and should remain constant for 30 years.
And without any innovation from my side.
Is not only expecting us to be naive and the Indian consumer to be naive, is expecting way beyond what is a legitimate expectation of an investor. An investor is expected to be nimble. Companies are expected to be innovative. And at the heart of it is a basic principle that the Indian consumer or any other consumer cannot be denied the fruits of innovation and creativity that are every day popping up on the internet just because a license was signed 5 years ago on some terms. I mean, I don't believe anybody can make a case that you can be denied WhatsApp or Viber or whatever, Flipkart or Amazon or whatever, just because somebody has signed an agreement 5 years ago that says something.
Right.
Yeah. So because there are.
And besides, it's not like that's a law of physics or a law of mathematics that cannot be undone. Yeah, which is again, I mean, I just like to say that some of the arguments that I see in the space are that the law didn't say X or it didn't say Y.
No, you see, there is no case that can be made honestly. And I've been an investor. I was one of the few first people to start telecom. You cannot make an argument that the progress of innovation and creativity can be stifled by an existing business model, number one. Number two, nor can the Indian consumer subsidize the changes that have to be made in a company's business model. It is not our job to subsidize Airtel or Vodafone's or move to a data-centric business model. That is for them to do. At best, if there is a real force majeure financial crisis caused by this, which I don't see because they're all making money, it is for the government to create incentives which will allow them to keep investing.
Right.
It is clearly not the Indian consumer
who has to
say you will be denied access to services or you will be charged more because, oh, by the way, his return has gone down from 48% on equity to 37% on equity.
Yeah, I just think it's a very whiny kind of argument.
I think, and that is where I am very disappointed with a sector which I helped found, where I thought 20 years on, these would be thought leaders, these would be innovation leaders, rather than continuing to be whining leaders.
Right.
You know, I would think that you should be at the forefront of this, saying the consumers and the telcos are aligned. We want India to be the market for creative apps, creative innovation, creative types of services, rather than saying we'll keep giving you voice on a phone and we'll keep fighting you that you should not access.
And we'll decide what the rates of that are, right?
Yeah.
Now, I was watching the interview of, he was a representative of ASSOCHAM. I think he was their president, gentleman in specs. And he was very consistent with what the Bharti press release was, which I thought was PR-wise a real disaster, because it was this very pompous, arrogant way of saying it's a very illiterate discussion going on.
Yeah.
You've been observing this discussion. I don't claim to be an expert in the field, but I think I'm smart enough to understand what net neutrality is and why it's important. You being from the space, would you agree with these two gentlemen, or one press release and this one ASSOCHAM president or chairman of a gentleman saying that all you people are really illiterate who talk about net neutrality?
And this is the danger. I think this is going to the DNA of some telcos to try and act big brother, gatekeepers, whatever you want to call it. The role of a telco or an ISP is not to be big brother on the internet. The internet by its very nature does not like big brothers. It is very consumer driven, and they don't like these big dominating presence on the net. They like competition, they like alternate offers. So I think from the get-go, to be patronizing that 100 million internet users or 200 million internet users in India don't understand what openness and transparency and choice is really shooting themselves in the foot, because you look like a fool in the process. To say that your consumers don't understand basic concept. What is net neutrality? Net neutrality is purely basic. This is no nuclear physics. It's about choice. It's about openness. It's about transparency and no discrimination. That is it. And that is democracy, if you want to call it that. It is net neutrality, and in different places it will be called different things. But at the end of the day, it is consumers decide, consumers rule. Now, if you are a telco, and you are going to talk down to your consumers, say, excuse me, you don't know what you're talking about, well, then, you get a head examined.
I'm going to ask you to just speculate. Why do you think Flipkart flipped?
Oh, Flipkart flipped because they heard the people, the voice of the people.
You think it was that?
100%.
Yeah. Now, why would Airtel not?
I think Airtel and anybody else who's thought this through will do it, provided the regulator causes them to do it.
Okay.
The upside from doing this is a lot of naya paisas and a lot of rupees. I think if you are an entity, you will take a bit of shame, a bit of beating on the brand if the upside is a lot of money. That is really the calculation, as you know. Why do businessmen do corrupt things? Because the upside is fairly significant.
Benefit is more than the potential
disproportionate
cost.
benefit.
Yeah.
So I think that is the calculation that they are calculating. I don't believe it's a sound calculation. I think it is good for them to back off of this quickly, align themselves to the consumer, be pro-consumer, be seen as pro-consumer, because that is the future of anybody who's trying to service and make revenues of the internet or the end internet consumer. You have to be seen as part of a process together. Right. You have to be seen as a service provider, not a gatekeeper.
Now, in all fairness to try, it's a complex debate. In one sense, it's not so complex in another. Like you said, the basics of transparency, openness, non-discrimination should remain intact, because that is the essence of the internet. But this is not a debate unique to India. Net neutrality has been a debate, in the US. Is there a model already anywhere which one can say, look, there it's working, which one can replicate, or will we just have to construct our own?
No, let's put it this way. First of all, this is not a complex debate. So the issue is not complex. The two sides of these have a lot to gain or lose. So the issue is simple, but the telecom operators have a lot to lose by allowing this to happen without a fight, which is why they are so heavily invested in this argument that net neutrality is adverse to investor sentiment. So I just want to repeat again that the issue is not complex, the debate is not long because of the complexity of the issue, the debate has become long because of the hard positions that telecom companies are taking, because it means for them...
And the potential size of the pie.
Exactly. So that is why it has become a fight where the big guys are really playing hardball. But the break in this has come when President Obama and Tom Wheeler, the FCC chairman, have beautifully articulated what net neutrality is about. Essentially, two fundamental principles: that the internet will remain and retain the character that it was born with and retain its DNA, which is open, transparent, with no domination by any gatekeeper. So that character of the internet shall be preserved and shall remain. And the second part of it is that where there are issues to do with investments, and every nation wants to create investments and continue to do them, governments must come up with alternate models to create incentives for that investment. Okay. But the incentive for the investment is not to grant more and more control to the gatekeepers on the internet. That is the emerging consensus around.
So what gives direction should still be consumer interest. That should be the guiding light. That's the beacon.
You have to preserve that. If these guys want some SOPs to alter their business models from voice-centric to data-centric, that is for the government to intervene.
Now, what are the next steps? Like the TRI consultation paper has received a whole lot of emails. There was a website set up, savetheinternet.in. I have also those 20 questions. Now, what next?
I mean, I don't know what the TRI will do, but I can tell you what the TRI ought to do. If I was a TRI, what I would do. First of all, I would do 2 or 3 things. One is I would download all these 3.5 emails, read them very carefully, and be very clear in my head that I have erred in the way I have done my consultation. So clearly the voice of those 3.5 lakh people who have talked very clearly about network neutrality has to be found in the recommendation document. Second is, the TRI must not just say we agree that network should be neutral, but they should also come up with regulations and enforceable law recommendations.
That if anyone violates it, there is a punitive action.
There's a consequence, yes, exactly. So that it is mandated and enforceable.
How likely is that, a punitive action?
So let me just finish. These recommendations, as you know, will go to the government.
Right.
Post whenever these recommendations are done, 1 month after the 24th or 10 days or whatever. It is for the government then to take that recommendation. If they don't like it, they can reject it. If they like it, they can accept it and then make that part of law and policy.
Okay.
So there is a 2-step process to this. One is for the TRAI to wake up and do the right thing belatedly. Send off the recommendations in a comprehensive form, no vagueness, no ambiguity, no middle ground nonsense which means nothing. Send it off to the government, and then Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad and the government will have to take action. And if the TRI has not done the right thing, they should reject it. Right. If they have done the right thing, they should accept it and make it law and policy.
How likely is that punitive action? I mean, because the perception out there is that, I won't say that's just unique for this government. I think that perception, I won't say whether it's true or not, though I personally believe it is true, but others could disagree, that industrialists and industrial houses wield a considerable amount of clout, which is disproportionate to their stake in the India story, so to speak. So how likely is that punitive action against?
But that was what they thought before the TRA consultation paper as well, and you saw what 3.5 lakh people have done to that sort of misnomer. I mean, there will always be attempts to dilute any enforceable law. That is a fact. But that is why this movement for network neutrality must stay its course, and must stay its course till you actually get a real framework that ensures that the internet will remain net neutral.
And will there be a debate in Parliament? Can we, expect to see you, standing up and making a submission?
I will 100%.
Or is there going to be another, going to forget a glass of water, I come back and it's done kind of thing?
I don't think that's possible now? I don't think it's possible anymore. That was in 2008. That was a different world and a different regime where a lot of stuff happened, as you know.
Even the SEZ Act was passed without a debate.
I mean, including 2G licenses was given. Though that was in my, I call it B-seed AD. I mean, we are now in AD. That was a totally different time.
Okay.
That was lawlessness was running rampant. We have today scrutiny, oversight, visibility. None of this can happen.
Okay.
And this is proved to me. Why I am so enthused by all this is that it is proved to me that, if people are told that there's something wrong going on, they will come on, and they will come on in a flood. In 8 days, if you can have 3.5 lakh people, that shows even to the most cynical politician that wo bure din ho gaye khatam aur achhe din aa gaye hain.
Okay. So if you say so.
Yeah. So I believe that there is no opportunity left for either the regulator or a government to now say something to net neutrality that is anything but emphatic and specific. If they go against it, and there's always a possibility that a government or a regulator says, no, we don't believe in it as a concept, or they dilute it, you will have the same group of people, up in arms again.
Okay, now while this debate has been happening on net neutrality, has it already been violated? Does Facebook's program violate it? Has it been violated, I believe, in the, I don't know if it's the World Cup of 2011, but there was an offer where, if you bought a particular connection, I forget which one, you got two apps with lesser, you spend, Facebook, Facebook or Twitter or Orkut, I wasn't online on Orkut days, but you didn't pay the same rates that you paid for regular surfing. Has it already been violated?
No, I don't know if it has been violated because nobody's sending any complaints to me. I'm not the regulator. So the regulator she's in a better position to say. But let us be clear what net neutrality should mean. Net neutrality doesn't mean that if Flipkart decides to say, I want to discount my product,
right,
or I want you can sell its product, your product to Flipkart, and Flipkart discounts it and sells it to expand its presence on the internet, that is not forbidden.
Sure, fair. That's fair enough.
If Facebook or Google or anybody says, we want to work with you, you don't have to give us money, but we want to create a platform where we can grow the internet, that is not wrong. What is wrong is if I'm an access provider and you pay me money, and I steer consumers to you at a disadvantage to the other 4 people who have the same product, that is a violation of net neutrality. So we have to be careful that we don't start believing that net neutrality means everything on the internet is free.
Sure.
And that the internet is a democratic space, but it's also a free marketplace.
Yeah, but once you're inside that market, there's differential pricing. Yeah, I'm just talking about getting there, getting to the mall.
Access to the internet cannot be gatekept by anybody. I cannot be a watchman of the internet as a telco and say, you pay me money and I will only take you there. I will not take you to the rest of the internet. That is the discrimination that we are fighting against. But normal marketplace techniques, like in the normal real world, should be allowed, because that is what creates vibrancy in the internet. Whether it's thought, whether it's content, whether it's movies, whether it's videos, whether it's e-commerce, that should continue.
Right. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been extremely helpful in this entire battle on net neutrality, and I hope our audience got a clearer picture of this entire net neutrality debate. Do write in with any questions, and hopefully we can send those to you if you could.
Of course, I'm always available. Thank you.
And good luck with this battle. I hope this one doesn't take 8 years though.
No, it won't. It won't. And with all of you on my side, I don't think it will.
Okay,
and
great.
Thank you for your support.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed that, click up here to support us and down here to subscribe. Be sure to check out our older episodes and the other stuff we do, like Can You Take It, I Agree, panel discussions, comics and animations, and much, much more.